Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and I'm with Doug Lawrence. Welcome.
Hello, how are you? And hello to all our viewers and listeners across the world. Thank you for joining us.
And yes, and also a big hello to your followers on your YouTube channel. Thank you for joining us. We really do appreciate it. Our show today is stories of hope, inspiration, and overcoming adversity. And, we just had our last show, Your Story, Your Grief, Your Journey. So I figured I went from wearing black to now I'm wearing white. I feel a little lighter in white. I don't know why, but sometimes our environment, our background, for example, our surroundings, the people that we're with can really help set our mood. Would you agree?
Oh, yes, most definitely. Yeah, definitely. And, especially when we take a look at things from, in the work context. So we'll use the corporate terminology, I guess, for lack of a better choice of words, but coming to work and, how I always tell people when I'm mentoring and they're sort of saying, things aren't going the way I want. And what I typically, discuss, I actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I think of this one individual I was mentoring, and we actually went through a time period where she wasn't able to get a job interview. She wasn't able to do a lot of things that, she would like to be able to do. And so we started to have conversations. And so it was a combination of her not believing in herself. So she was struggling with, the adversity of what is it, who am I, and what is it that I want to be when I grow up, so to speak. And we ended up, long story short, is we ended up going through, as I called it, a makeover, where I got her to believe in herself and start to talk more positively, sort of the self-talk stuff. And she was able to do that. And then, I said, as much as your husband's going to hate me, I think you should go and take a look at some different clothes and stuff like that will kind of just, when you walk in a room, it's going to just make everybody kind of pay attention. And kind of the story I use is, when she went through that process, was that she used to be this person that would walk into a room and you wouldn't notice her whatsoever. And, she just didn't bring a spark or anything to the room. And now that we've gone through this makeover and how she carries herself, and she's gone and bought clothes that accent, all the positives, and that she actually now, when she walks into a dimly lit room, she lights the room up. And so she overcame all that adversity, and she's now in a better place. And she actually became the advocate she got hired. That's sort of the icing on the cake, was she got hired into this position, and she became the advocate for positive energy in the workplace. And, people would come up to her and start talking negative, and she'd say, whoa, just a minute, back away. If you're going to talk negative, talk around me, just go get away from me. Because this is a workplace that is fostered on positive energy. And if you're going to talk negative, there's no place for you. So just just go and get it. And I went, yes, that's my girl. She did a good job. So that, when we sort of look at, she had the hope that whatever we were going to go through, that it was going to make a difference. She overcame all the adversity that she had to in order to get to the goal that she was hoping for, and she was able to get there. And so, she was able to tie all that together and with a very positive outcome.
Truly a success story. And I love how you gave those makeover tips about how to carry yourself, what to wear. I think that's really significant. I know for me, I have many, many black dresses, and I will just go and put them on because I feel I don't have to actually stand out in any way. What I'm wearing now, I'm standing out more. I've got a shoulder exposed, more skin, and you really have to change your mindset. I don't want to say to rise to the occasion, but you really do have to rise to the occasion, especially if you are looking to make a statement. Are you wearing, let's say, a red dress and you're hunched over and shuffling in, or you walking, hey, your Superwoman pose, your Superman pose, and it makes a huge difference about how you come across.
Well, and the whole mindset space, I guess, for lack of a better choice of words, is it truly does play quite well into that, because if you don't believe that you can, then you won't. And I remember working with an individual that got referred to me because the mentor that they were working with, the chemistry wasn't there. So I ended up working with that individual. And I met them in a coffee shop. And when I met them for the very first time, I was quite surprised that the body language was such that it was came across very negatively. And they were hunched over, they wouldn't maintain eye contact. The resume itself was very negative. Like, you could just feel the negative energy in the resume. And I know that sounds a little funny or a little hokey for some folks, but you can actually sense negative and positive energy even in documents, because that's what's given off by the author. And so in her case, it was, she had self-esteem, self-confidence, self-worth, self-doubt issues. She had all of those going against her. So those were the challenges or the adversities that she had to work through. And she was hopeful that we were going to be able to do that. And we were able to go through the whole self-talk, the yellow Post-it notes on the bathroom mirror to say, I'm a good person, and today's going to be a very positive day, and work at all of those things where, and she went through all of those different things to be able to try and sort out in her mind. And the big thing was to get her to a place where she believed in who she was as a person. And we did that. And as a result of that, she ended up, I think, once we got the resume to be more positive, she got 3 or 4 job interviews and she got hired. And then because of her work ethics and her now believing in herself, she ended up being transferred to the head office in Ontario, and has been doing, I stay in touch with her fairly regularly, and she's been doing just great. And, it all comes back to that whole, mindfulness, believing in yourself, and being able to take on those adverse challenges, the adversity that are going to be thrown at you, and not so much hope to some extent, but just believe in who you are.
I love those words, believe in who you are. And mindset and perspective is so important. I also think when we think about adversity, sometimes adversity comes in the form of things that we were taught when we were younger, or things that we heard at some point in our life that are still in there somewhere, peeking their little heads out every now and then. And even though everything can be going our way, we're happy with where we are. We have the monkey mind. We have those voices and it's actually been happening to me recently. I'm going to be 60 on Sunday, and I really hadn't given it a lot of thought. But, people love to reach out to you and go, "Oh, you're going to be 60 now," comments that people make. And I started thinking, wonder if I should be cutting my hair, or maybe all these things that, you get to be a certain age, that are you supposed to be doing that? Because I heard that from when I was actually in corporate, you get to be a certain age. I think I was turning 40 and I was told that you're not supposed to have long hair when you reach a certain age. So you can feel great about yourself, but yet there's always that doubt, those doubts that come from outside that we let in.
And why do we do that? Why do we let that negative energy enter into sort of our space? And I just, I hear what you're saying, because I've heard those same voices, and I've got to a point where, you know what? I don't really care what you think I should do. I'm going to, because there's no shoulds in life, but anyhow, I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm going to dress how I want to dress. I'm going to do what I want to do. And thank you for your opinion. That's all it is an opinion. And I'm not going to get myself wrapped up in all that negativity, because that's what will happen. Is if we don't manage it, it will manage us. And the most important thing that I think we need to just remember is, when people start throwing those things at you, just ignore them. And I know that's easier said than done, but the end will justify the means. And just ignore and take the Post-it notes, or even stand in front of your bathroom mirror in the morning and say, just no matter what anyone else says, I am truly a great person. I am making a difference in the world today. And I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and I can do more, but it has to be more from a positive than from a negative energy perspective.
Very true. Now, I want to take that a little bit further. So, when we are confident and we do believe in ourselves, and people might be throwing little small stones that may be big boulders, and we're like, we'll get out of the way. Where does that fine line come in? And I've seen this with people where they're confident to an egomaniac, and they just are bordering on narcissism, because and we can talk about narcissism as a whole other subject, but that person that they're not just confident, but they're just leading by their ego instead of their heart.
Yeah, those are the tough ones to have to deal with. And sometimes, I broach some of those from the aspect of, I use the mentoring techniques and that, where they're talking about things, that this is the way it should be because I've done, and all that sort of stuff. I will take that and I'll flip that around, and I'll frame it in the context of a question, or a question with the answers that I would like them to think about embedded into the question itself. So, I hear what you're saying, that, while you may not have experienced this yourself in the past, you definitely have a very strong opinion of how it should be dealt with. What would happen if we were to try this, or this? What might, I'm not sure what the outcomes would be. What do you think? And get them thinking of things in a different context. Because as long as they have the control, they're going to continue to go down that path, down that rabbit hole. And sometimes the part that concerns me is that they take others with them when they do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we had a show on earlier today. We talked about a topic that I really want to expand upon, because I think it fits into overcoming adversity. Is we are approached at different points in our life, typically by the devil who's wearing sheep's clothing, or someone presents an offer to us that seems to be a perfect fit with what it is that we're doing, or what it is we want. And it turns out that we end up getting taken. And as we're taken, obviously, we had a role in it because we agreed to sign the contract with the devil, so to speak, even though we didn't know per se that it was the devil. So my question to you is, how do we take that type of adversity that can be personal or professional and forgive, so that we can move on and find new hope and inspiration instead of being weighed down with what it is that happened?
All of those things, I come at those from a place of reflection. So, I look at it from sort of the three questions I always ask when I'm going through the reflection process is, okay, so in the relation, and I use relationship in a broad context, but in the relationship of what you've described, what went well, what didn't go well, and what am I going to do differently next time? So I've taken a situation which is very negative, and I've turned it into a learning opportunity that has, with lots of positive energy thrown in on top of it all. But I'm I'm not allowing myself to get pulled down because of that. I want to, what did I learn from it? Because every single thing that we do or touch or anything like that, every single thing is something that we can learn from, and we need to be able to do that. So for me it's, all those things, when they happen, and I turn them into learning opportunities, and then I create what's my pathway going to be going forward from now that we've sort of had the initial conversation. What's my pathway that I'm going to take in order to move forward with this particular situation?
And Doug, in your experience, do you forgive the person or persons who led you down a path of adversity? And if so, do you do it acknowledging them so that they know, or do you just do it to acknowledge it for yourself?
I would say I would do both. Me being me now, when I think back, because my initial reaction to answer your question was I would forgive myself for making the decision that I did. But the other part then would be, what's left kind of sitting out there is, what about the person that that you were doing stuff with, or whatever, that it became part of the adversity that you have to, because it wasn't in your best interest or whatever. And so for me, I think that me being me is, I would be probably wanting to, number one, forgive myself, because that should, in a lot of cases, it needs to start there. And then secondly, I would then have the conversation with the person right up front.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a tough one, because as we evolve and grow and move from being egocentric to more heart-centric, or as Dr. Madeline Chan would say, we go from a 3D world to a 5D world. Not everyone's coming with us. And there are definitely people, and I won't mention any names because I could, but there are definitely people who don't acknowledge that they've made a mistake or that they've wronged someone. And, with social media, people are out there, they're going here, they're going there, they're doing this, they're doing that. And meanwhile, they've left a carnage along the way, but don't seem to care about it. So I feel in those cases that you just have to basically cut your losses and say, okay, I'm not going to get through to that person. They're not going to acknowledge what they did. But for me, I can't be weighed down by it. I have to keep moving forward, acknowledge there's a loss, acknowledge there was a mistake, but I have to keep going.
Well, and I forgive myself for what it is, the decision that I made, rightly or wrongly, and I forgive myself for not using it as the learning opportunity that I could have.
Yeah, exactly. And just to expand upon that, in this specific instance, which obviously I can't go into, but other people who know me thought it would be a good idea to do something with said person or persons. And so they also ended up signing a contract with the devil. And it's kind of like when you're not able to make an inroad, other people can then also fall prey. And what can you do except watch, because you didn't know they were actually going to get involved with the other people.
Yeah, most definitely. It's a tough path to have to figure out and go down. I know that for me, forgiveness is definitely at the top of the list of things that I would be wanting to make sure, because at the end of the day, as long as, like in my particular case, if I were to look at the situation, as long as I was satisfied that no harm per se has been done, and that we've both reached a place where we know that we have to move on and move forward, and we're both willing to do so, as far as we both overcome our own personal adversities, and we're in a place now where we're hoping that by so doing that, how I like to somehow describe it is the good Lord is watching over and is offering a different direction for us to travel. And we need to decide, is that the path we want to take? And if so, then, what does that look like, and how are we going to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Just along what we're talking about, I'll share a story, and I think I might have mentioned it to you before, Doug, but I was doing an interview, and the topic was helping people reacclimate into society after they've struggled with addiction or other things. And in interviewing my guest, I knew of my guest as someone who was part of an organization doing this. So when I asked my guest, I guess 3/4 of the way through the interview, what was the catalyst to get this person to be doing what they're doing, he basically said that he had killed someone. And I wasn't prepared for that. That's when I first started interviewing. I guess the look on my face. And so the reason I bring it up is that we have the power of forgiveness. And if you believe in God or universe or spirit or something. So my question to you is it possible to really overlook someone's adversity, like killing someone, for example, and give them forgiveness and then invite them into your life? Or are there certain things that are not forgivable, that it's that type of adversity that is basically, I'll never associate with anyone like that, air quotes on the radio?
Yeah. I think I would be inclined to ask the question, what took place that caused that particular outcome? So what did that individual, what preempted or what caused them to react and take a life or anything like that? Because underneath everything that we talk about, underneath there are reasons, not necessarily good reasons or anything like that, but there are reasons why people do things. Sometimes when we think about them, they're not rational or anything like that. They did them because of whatever the reasons may be. But the big thing is, it's easy to pass judgment on other people, but you're doing that without having all of the facts. And so there's a lot of things that, take place that can cause us to behave or to react to situations that we don't normally have to deal with. And so for me, I would be inclined to forgive, but I would also, before I went much further than that, I would want to, and I think it's kind of the mentor in me, is I would want to know what's precipitating the behavior, or what did precipitate the behavior, so that we can maybe have a conversation about how are we going to deal with that going in, into the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And in your former line of work, I'm sure you saw a lot of adversity. And I think what's interesting I don't know if it's just today's world or today's society, but people are very quick to make a judgment, and they don't actually answer or ask any questions. They just, in their mind, they see something on television, they're bad people, they're this, they're that. So I'm wondering, collectively, as a community, as humanity, to overcome adversity, to me, there has to be forgiveness. There has to be an understanding of what was at the root cause. And even if it was hatred or jealousy or something else along those lines, what is it that caused that? So if you keep peeling it back and peeling it back, you're going to get an answer. It might take a long time, but once you get that answer, it's possible that when you work on that with the person, or the person works on that themselves, that those other feelings start to slowly dissipate.
No, I would agree with that 100%. And the toughest thing, I think, that for most of us is how do I go about having some of those questions, that dialogue with somebody who may or may not want to even participate in the conversation. And so then how do I go about making that happen?
And if you think about, for example, counselors, social workers, therapists, coaches, mentors, hearing these types of stories, it also can have an impact on the person receiving the information, especially if it's not someone who's trained in that. And then when you are working with someone, I remember seeing this on The Sopranos, for example, many, many years ago, that the therapist who was working with the main character was getting a lot of flack from other people for even treating this person. How could you? Why would you associate with that person? But yet every person at their core, I feel like, has some good. It could just be behind brick walls covered with steel, but you have to be able to get to it.
Yeah. And one of the things I was thinking about was one of the things I do as a mentor is I work with individuals in organizations, and I've done some stuff where the organization was looking at terminating an employee. And so I spent 5 1-hour sessions with that particular individual. And as a result of that, was able to, find out that he was highly intelligent. And so therefore, being as intelligent as what he was, because he was also working in the information technology support area, when it came to interacting with people, he didn't have the greatest people skills to be able to convey his message. And he was finding himself tapped out, focus-wise, energy-wise, all of those things, because he would come to work and he'd work right through lunch hour and all that sort of stuff, and never got a break, never got a chance to, if he had a bad experience with a client, he never had a place to go or the time to be able to just kind of let that all out and get rid of it, and then refocus and go back, after having something to eat, some lunch or something like that. So what I also found was, because he was very intelligent, he was also a good teacher. And what I did was I got him to see himself in that teaching role, and I gave him some examples of, rather than going in there like a lot of some of my IT buddies are going to strike me down here, but that's okay, because what they would sometimes, because it's common sense to them, so it'd be click, 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 click. Oh, there you go, it's all fixed. And what I said, what you want to do is say, here, why don't you drive and I'll guide, and start to, say, so if you click here, this is what could happen. But if you click over here, here's a different outcome. And I think this is the one we might be looking for. And so I said, spend the extra time with your clients and teach instead of tell. And you're going to find that, the outcomes are going to be a whole lot better. And you're going to be seen as a completely different person as a result of that. And so he went from being an individual who was definitely not a people person. He ended up going to a social event and was interacting with his coworkers. And I want to say he had a girlfriend, a significant other, that he used to just leave at home because he didn't want to have to do the socializing thing. And he actually brought her to the next social event once we got done the 5 hours, because his whole mindset had changed on his perception of himself, but also of how he could change what it is that he does in order to better meet the needs of the people he served.
Yeah, that's so valid. I really appreciate that. I have interviewed on this platform people who have been survivors of sex trafficking, of domestic violence. And one thing that really stood out was when they were in that situation for whatever amount of time, they reacted in a certain way that kept them in that situation, because they were so beaten down that they didn't think it was even possible to get out of the situation. And in the cases that I've heard, something happened that was a trigger event. They got the strength, they got the courage, they found the resources, they found somebody to help them, and they got out of that situation and then found a completely different side of themselves that had been locked away. And I really feel like that's so important when it comes to finding hope and inspiration, is realizing that we shouldn't label ourselves for what has happened in our life, for taking path A when we could have taken path B, because we took path A and whatever happened, happened. But labeling ourselves, putting ourselves down, calling ourselves out over and over and over again is so destructive. Okay, we were there, whether we put ourselves there or somebody took us there, and now we're not. What did we learn from that? And where is that hope and inspiration to give someone else that trigger event to help them get out?
No, and I agree. And I especially like the aspect of, the idea of the questions, to get them to thinking, and the aspect of, being able to, for me anyhow, what it entails is that every time something like that happens, it's a learning opportunity. And yeah, we may have put ourselves into that position, but by so doing, what did we learn from that? And what can we do differently next time? And I'm a huge proponent of that whole reflection piece, because I use that quite often myself, just in a day-to-day capacity. And by doing so, I think, it's helped me to be able to, when I'm working with other people, to create a deeper, richer experience for them as well, because we're able to learn and grow from each instance that we're together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Doug, when I think about stories of hope, inspiration, overcoming adversity, we all have 1, 2, 3, 5, And the longer we live and the longer we put ourselves out there, there are going to be more stories. And to me, those stories become part of a journey. What would you say for someone you may have met or someone you've heard about where their journey seems to be continuously overcoming adversity? There seems to be very little hope and inspiration. It seems that one thing after another continues to happen to them. Do you think that they have a role in it? Do you think it's fate? I realize every situation is different.
You're right. Every situation is different. I think we all have some part to play in the story that you're telling. I think the best way for me to describe it is that I can manage that situation, or I can let it manage me. And if I let it manage me, then what I would see taking place is that the adversity would continue to be there. It would continue to grow, and we would be dealing with bigger amounts, larger pots of adversity that we would have to deal with before we can move on to do what we would like to be able to do. And, to make a difference. But without being able to do that, without being able to manage it, we set ourselves up so that will ultimately be what takes place. And so I think, for our listeners and viewers, one of the things to think about is this something, and I think you can use this statement in a lot of perspective or a lot of different things, is this something I can manage, or is it going to manage me? And by doing just that, by manage that situation, it's the same thing as stress and a number of other things. I always talk about us being able to manage stress or let it manage us, whichever one, you seem to think is the best possible thing. And for me, I like to be managing all of those external things so that I can have the outcome that I'm hoping that I will be able to get.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. And one of our team members, Caroline Heward, she did a Talking Heads episode on the psychology behind victimhood. And if you think about someone who's constantly finding themselves overcoming one adversity after another, I wonder, and of course we can't say this across the board, but are we asking ourselves, what role did I play to get into this? Am I painting myself as the victim? Because when I'm the victim, I get attention. Oh, poor you, poor, oh, I feel sorry for you. And I think that some people thrive off of that. But it's not a healthy mindset, in my opinion. We want people to acknowledge us, in my opinion, for the good that we're doing, for the ways that we're giving back, for how we're showing up, as opposed to for the mistakes that we're making.
Yeah, I would agree with you 100% on that, for sure.
So when we think about being a victim and the role that just that word, in fact, I've heard people who have overcome tremendous adversity, whether, let's say, sex trafficking. No, I'm not a victim of it. I'm a survivor. And that word survivor is powerful, as opposed to victim. It's a low energy vibrational word, and you just feel being pulled down. So I feel like our mindset, the words that we choose, the tone of voice that we use, the people that we align with, that all plays into how we overcome adversity to find hope and inspiration.
Yeah, that's what a great way to sort of take everything we've talked about and bring it all together quite nicely. And so, from my perspective, that certainly is the case. There's just so much that we can do to sort of navigate or help push us along in the right direction rather than in the wrong direction. And I, with some of the mentoring and stuff that I've done, I've seen so many people that have started going down that path in the wrong direction and had to be brought back. And, you know, a lot of times it was one of the things I always do with the mentoring is I always look at the personal growth of an individual first. So, you know, that's where those words that I used before, the self-esteem, self-confidence, and all of those things. But let's have a look at those, and, you know, maybe we'll be able to find what is the root cause that's causing, you know, a lot of this stuff to take place. And, you know, that you're not finding a reason to want to step in to try and right the wrong or get the train back on the track, so to speak. And a lot of that I can probably take you back to your early childhood years, and it's probably where it first started. So there's a whole bunch of different things, from how did adversity get started in my life and all of those things, that it's a whole nother conversation.
Absolutely. And to your earlier point, when we are facing adversity, when we're in the throes of it, we may not be able to see what are the key learnings, but we can remind ourselves this is temporary. Unless it's death, or as they say, the IRS, it is temporary, that we will not be in the same place again at some point in the future. And then we'll be able to look back and say, okay, this is how I got there, and this is what I'm taking away from it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So to just quote your book, you are not alone. And I really appreciate you sharing this space with me, Doug. And for everyone who's watching or listening live or on the replay, we'd love to have you join us and share your story. So if you're interested, please go over to our website, usaglobaltv.com/book your session, and look for Stories of Hope, Inspiration, Overcoming Adversity, this lovely bright yellow mustard color with the butterflies. So Doug, how can people reach out to you? We have your contact information here. How can they reach out, and who would you like to reach out?
You know, I'm pretty much open to whoever needs to or wants to, have a conversation is a better way to describe it. And you can, you know, through the website, and like you said, the address is on the banner at the bottom of your screen. So www.talentc.ca. But just as easily, and it's a whole lot more simpler, I think, for all of us, is you can reach out by send me an email, and we'll set up a time to have a chat. And you can reach me at doug.lawrence@talentc.ca, and we'll go from there, and we'll see where we end up.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And just so people are aware, we are running replays of all of our shows when we're not broadcasting. So you can expect to see this show several more times this week, which I love, because people are not always watching on the live, and we want people to watch whenever they want to watch. So I just want to make you aware that when you see this, it might be a replay if you're watching it after this time. So thank you again, Doug. And thank you everyone for watching and for listening. We do appreciate you. We'll be back tomorrow. We've got 7 more shows tomorrow. So stay tuned for more education, inspiration, entertainment, and hope. All right. Bye, everyone. Bye, Doug.
Bye-bye.
Bye.